I fear that this is becoming a common occurrence, Chris, because more often than not, when I get home from the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex, whether it's covering the Steelers or covering the University of Pittsburgh, I always have to bring these out.
Yeah.
Just if you'll let me indulge for a second as we get set to start the show here. Just a couple quick ones.
Yeah.
I think many of you that are listening in are sharing the same sentiment that I am after listening to Mike Tomlin today. A good Tuesday afternoon, everybody. This is the Southside Beat. As always, from Monday through Friday, 3 to 3:30 Eastern, right here on DK Pittsburgh Sports. He's Chris Halicke. I'm Corey Chrism. Fear not, folks. Fear not, Chris.
Yeah.
Change is coming. That's right. Mike Tomlin did not lie after Sunday's game, or so we think for now. They are going to make some changes. What is that big change going to be? That's right. You guessed it. The betting odds-on favorite is coming to fruition. The Steelers will put pads on in practice this week in pads.
Yeah. So I've got one take from the press conference today. Obviously, I wasn't there, but I listened in from afar. Joe Vlogs pretty much sums it up pretty well. Tomlin threw his players under the bus. Listen, I'm not disputing the fact that the Steelers were not physical in the game against the Texans. They weren't. They got shoved around by a bunch of guys who were probably better off bagging groceries than they were playing in the National Football League. And somebody at some point should have had some sort of Ivory Christian speech on the sideline or in the locker room and been like, listen, we got to stop getting pushed around. Even Montravius Adams told me after the game that sometimes the players are thinking too much about assignments and not enough about, and I quote, whipping people's asses. So I'm not debating that. But when Tomlin comes out and pretty much says that that's the sole reason or the main reason why Sunday looked what it looked like, that is just every single one of those players ought to probably have tire tracks on their backs right now, because that was really, really not cool, honestly.
Teresa has a great suggestion.
Yeah.
Switch it from Gatorade to Powerade, although I do believe Gatorade is a sponsor of the NFL, so that would have to go through many clearances. Listen, in 2 of these 4 games this season, the Steelers have gotten their asses kicked. They've gotten their asses handed to them. 30-6, 30-7. Is that coincidence? No, because, of course, the 49ers and the Texans, which that coaching staff came from the 49ers. I said it yesterday. I say it again. This is closer to an 0-4 team than a 4-0 team, even though they are 2-2.
Yeah.
If Nick Chubb's knee doesn't blow up and Josh McDaniels knows basic math, this is an 0-4 football team. Period.
1-3 probably, because even then that basic math gets the game tied and it's overtime. It could go either way at that point.
Fine, I'll give you
either
that.
way, it's still a bad football team.
Fine, I'll give you
that.
Bad
football team.
The Steelers lining up in pads and running gassers on the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex is not going to fix this. Listen, I put this in our feed on DKPittsburghSports.com, and of course, everything from Mike Tomlin's press conference can be found there for you to read. And there's a story on the top of the website right now of what Mike Tomlin had to say today as an explanation for the absolute, I can't curse and use the word I want to, performance on Sunday. But I'm sorry, padded practices and talking about physicality and pad level. Mike Tomlin used the phrase pad level today in his press conference. Do you know who talks about pad level and physicality, Chris? High school coaches. I know this because I know high school coaches that teach pad level and physicality and effort and playing hard. High school coaches talk about that kind of thing. This is the National freaking Football League. We can't be talking about pad level. And if these players need to be taught pad level, they shouldn't be playing in the National Football League. That's the bottom line. So listen, if Mike Tomlin truly believes, one of 2 things is true here, okay? Number 1, Mike Tomlin was given lip service, and he doesn't have answers, which I would believe that. Number 2, Mike Tomlin truly believes that they can't be physical physically capable. They were not physically capable, and they have to up their physicality, and that's why they got blown out in Houston. And if Mike Tomlin truly, in his heart, believes that as the sole reason and as the focal point reason for the Steelers' 2 failures this season and the games they have lost, that is a problem to me. That is archaic thinking. That is dated thinking. That is saying that we are not going to conform to this NFL in a society of the NFL where you have to conform to in order to have success.
Yeah, it's you don't necessarily have to have an offensive-minded coach in order to win, but you have to be able to be more than adequate on that side of the ball. You can't be
Counterpoint. All 4 head coaches in the AFC and NFC championship games last year were offensive coaches.
Yeah, I'm not
Proceed.
I'm not saying that yes, that is where the NFL is more trending, but you still have coaches that can have sustained success in this league and being a defensive-minded coach. I'm not saying that, and believe me, I'm not taking anything away because I'm still a firm believer that defense wins championships, that you have to be able to, at any moment, be able to just say enough is enough and stop the other team from gaining a yard. I do know, however, it has probably never been more difficult to play defense in the NFL. And so because of that, you have to then change your thinking even a little bit so that you're trying to also compete and be in the same category, in the same league, even as other teams that know how to score points. Everybody does it different ways. You don't have to have Patrick Mahomes in order to be successful. You can do it through running the football. The Ravens do it. The Ravens find ways to move the ball up and down the field and score. They put 28 points on the Browns like it was nothing.
That's fine, Chris, and that's fine. I understand that, but here's another problem I have. The Steelers have gotten outscored double in the first quarter of football games this season. Yeah. You can't execute a game plan when you're a run-first football team when you're giving up double the amount of points that you're scoring in the first quarter. When you're going down 10 points, 7 points, however many points it is, in the first quarter and extending into the second quarter, that game plan goes out the window. The Pittsburgh Steelers are not built to come back on teams. They're not built to come from behind.
That's actually a Matt Canada admission right there, too.
It is.
That's a problem.
This Steelers team is built to run the football, milk clock, score few, and let the defense carry it. That's what this football team is. And quite frankly, Chris, it's starting to become an ass-backwards philosophy. It just is. In today's NFL, where everybody's building for offense, everybody's building to score a lot of points, everybody's building to literally getting to shootouts and win shootouts with other teams. The Steelers aren't doing that. They're zagging when everybody is zigging. And right now, zigging in this NFL is what's working. This is, again, dated thinking that is coming up to creep on Mike Tomlin and the rest of the Steelers. You saw it as evidenced on Sunday. Sunday is a case and point example of that. Rookie quarterback, fresh new offensive coordinator, first-year head coach, rookie wide receiver, patchwork offensive line, and they killed the Steelers on Sunday.
Defensive-minded coach, by the way.
And they killed the Steelers on Sunday.
Yeah.
So listen, I back Mike Tomlin more than anybody, I think. I am a huge Tomlin apologist. I just am. I always have been. I think he's a future Hall of Famer. I think he's first ballot. I think he's all of that. What also can be true is that this was the most alarming thing I've heard from Mike Tomlin in a very, very long time, if ever.
Yeah, that today was pretty. Whenever I heard, because I was almost expecting, like, okay, whenever that happens, and he comes out and he says, "Oh yeah, we weren't physical enough," blah blah blah. Okay, I also expected him to say, "We also have to coach better. We have to do this," and that really didn't even come up until he was directly asked about it, and then he kind of got into it, and that's whenever I'm kind of like, "All right, this is a problem here." Like. You can't. There's blame to go when you get beaten that badly by two different teams. There's blame to go all around, both on the field, off the field. It's the coaches, it's the players, it's everything, it's everybody. And so when that's the problem, or when that's the main problem, that there's blame to go all around. Some stuff has got to be fixed, and I don't know. Again. Nothing's going to happen in the middle of the season.
No.
Somebody said, mean, what would the contingency plan be? There is no contingency plan.
it's
Yeah,
Mike Sullivan or Glenn Thomas, and they're going to run the same offense.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the only thing that's going to be different is maybe some differences in play calling, play sequencing, things like that, and maybe some plays get scrapped completely. But you're not going to see anything drastic change this season. They made this bed whenever they kept on Matt Canada for his final year of his contract, and listen, we're talking about the offense, and yeah, the offense is awful, but there are some serious questions on the defense too.
Absolutely.
Because and this is kind of where I kind of go on coaching at the same time, because listen, if you're talking about we need to go to take advantage of the padded practice that we're allowed to have, like why wasn't that happening before? I mean, I understand you're trying to keep your players healthy. I get it. You know, you've been a banged up football team, but man, I mean, if you don't take advantage of that and then your team goes out there and gets absolutely pushed around by a team that shouldn't be pushing them around, if there's ever a time to say Mike Tomlin didn't have his players ready, that's probably a time to do it.
This in week 1 and week 1. And you can argue week 2. If Nick Chubb's knee doesn't blow up, they lose that football game. I believe that. It took 2 defensive touchdowns, 2 amazing heroic plays, one from Alex Highsmith, one from TJ Watt for the Steelers to win that game. Yeah. This is at minimum a 1-3 team if that happens. And if Josh McDaniels knows basic math, it could be an 0-4 team. I start a few comments that we're going through it, and the chat is absolutely fire today.
You guys are awesome.
Little bit of coin says, did you see his pathetic excuse for his reasoning to call that 4th and 1, aka the play that Kenny Pickett got hurt on, aka the pass play when Najee Harris was running his best all season, the pass play that was dialed up that got Kenny Pickett hurt. Yes, Mike Tomlin's reasoning, little bit of coin says excuse, I will say reasoning, was that Dan Moore and Pat Freiermuth weren't available. That's why they threw it. Come on. That's what we're doing. That's what we're saying.
That's the very definition of living in your fears, by the way.
Absolutely.
The very definite. We don't have the personnel to do it, to do the play that we want to do. And by all means, like, okay, if you go out there and you still run out a big set, who says you can't run play action? There are a few different things that you can do. Almost anything else, personnel, like regardless of personnel, almost anything else you could have done except for that play call. If you're going to, I mean,
we had a whole Super Bowl that said if you have a star running back, give it to him with 1 yard to get. Didn't we have a whole Super Bowl that told us that?
Yep.
Seahawks versus Broncos, give Marshawn Lynch the ball at the goal line. Didn't we have a whole Super Bowl that said that? Nothing irks me more in today's NFL than when a coordinator or a coach thinks something. You have a 4th and 1 situation. Najee Harris is running the ball amazingly. Give him the football. It's that simple. Like, there are some things that are so simple that it just becomes they overthink it. Swan chimes in with a $5 contribution. Thank you, Swan.
Thanks, buddy.
He says Steelers news is important in bad times and good times. Thanks, guys. That's why we're here. We're trying to remain down here with respect to emotion because, and I've said this on the site too, I feel like I'm repeating myself when I talk about the Steelers and Pitt when it comes to these, whatever it is, 9 football games I've seen at this point. Okay. Now, we can look towards the Ravens all we want, but I think you and I are both going to agree that I don't think it's going to be too pretty on Sunday. No. Now, if physicality is the thing that Mike Tomlin wants to preach, and physicality is the thing that the Steelers are going to key in on this week, I understand that from a standpoint of preparing for the Baltimore Ravens. The cliche AFC North ball, Steelers versus Ravens, that whole like 3 yards in a cloud of dust thing, maybe that applies this week. Maybe there's some to that this week because the Ravens are going to run the ball. We all know they're going to run the ball. We all know the Steelers are going to try to stop the run, even though they really can't right now. Yeah. They have the 29th ranked offense and the 29th ranked defense. Do the Steelers do? So this is not the week to get right at all. And now with the Ravens, they can get a little separation of the AFC North. You can't tell me they're not champing at the bit to get here on Sunday.
Yeah. I will say, though, and maybe this is the eternal optimist in me, but if there's ever a game that's going to help the Steelers snap back into focus, it's the Ravens. I mean, to be completely honest, because if there's any team that Mike Tomlin gets his guys ready for, no matter what, it's the Ravens. And I think that's one of the main reasons why the games are usually so close. because there's just something about this rivalry. It's a special one, and everybody who walks into that locker room understands what this game is. And William did say Kenny hurt himself. He did. He spun into a guy when he didn't have to, left a clean pocket when he didn't have to. He also shouldn't have been put in that situation. Again, Kenny hurt himself for sure, but again, shouldn't have been in that situation anyway.
Okay, I love this topic from Justin, and we're going to talk about Kenny Pickett shortly. How will the conversation change if the Steelers get blown out by Baltimore? Here's the thing, Chris. By this point, I don't know if it does. I don't know what canned answer Mike Tomlin can give us that would say, if he says definitively on Sunday after they get blown out by the Texans, we're going to make changes, right? Paraphrasing. We're going to make changes. He didn't say changes are happening. He's saying there is a affirmative action that needs to take place, but he is acknowledging that things need to change. That's all he did on Sunday. Today, he said the change, the acknowledgement that turns into the action. The action is going to be that they're going to try to be more physical. Okay, if that's what he wants to say, then fine. But as Justin says, if they get blown out by Baltimore and they do all of this stuff to fine-tune the physicality, as Tomlin said it lacked on Sunday against the Texans, and then Baltimore still out-physicals them, then what the hell do they do?
Yeah, I mean, it's legitimate because, like I said, if there's any game that's going to help the Steelers snap back into focus, it's this one. And if they can't even do that, if they can't get up for this game, especially knowing that it's going into a bye, you need to go into a bye on a good note, get some guys healed up, try to, use the bye week to refocus, to make. That's when you can make some more tangible changes. We saw it last year. They used the bye week last year to make some serious changes, and they came out and they were different in the second half of the season. But if you go into the bye week after getting absolutely drilled by your division rival, and now you're under 500, it's a different story. So if they can't get up for this game, and if they end up getting manhandled and blown out, I mean, okay. but I mean, listen. At this point, if there's ever going to be anything that's going to help change here, like if there's really going to be anything that really helps there be change with the Steelers organization, it's going to be a season like this one, but for all 17 games. Like where not only do they finish with a losing season, but they just are terrible across the board.
Swan, fear not. I will be back in low res tomorrow and Thursday. Fear not.
Ooh.
Okay, we have to talk about Kenny Pickett because the starting quarterback was addressed by Mike Tomlin, and it's a positive sign. At minimum, we can talk about something positive here today. Mike Tomlin said that Kenny Pickett is going to practice tomorrow in a limited capacity and essentially going to test out that knee. It's a minor knee injury, a very minor knee injury, no real concern for anything long-term, which is the good sign. Now, he did confirm also that if it's not Kenny Pickett on Sunday, it will be Mitch Trubisky. So there's another thing that we're going to monitor this week is basically the reps. This is almost like a training camp 2022 situation where you're monitoring who's taking the reps. Is Kenny getting more reps than Mitch, or is Mitch getting more reps than Kenny? Or are they splitting reps? Whatever it is, this is at least for Wednesday. Now, they're going to meet. Mike Tomlin said that he and the offensive staff are going to meet essentially to say, hey, what's the plan for Kenny? What are we going to give him? How much is he going to go? And then from there, they figure out what they're doing with Mitch, because it will be Mitch Trubisky as the backup quarterback. So positive news, not as serious as it could have been when it comes to that knee injury.
Yep.
But as of right now, it's still to be determined if he's going to play on Sunday. And now they're going to go forward without Dan Moore at left tackle. Mike Tomlin said he's expected to be out this week, which would give way to Broderick Jones. And they're not likely going to have Pat Freiermuth. They're basically saying that he's going to be doubtful by the end of the week. So right now the Steelers have more than just problems with scheme on offense. Now it's a personnel thing, especially no Deontay Johnson still. James Daniels is recovering from an injury. Now Kenny Pickett's down, Pat Freiermuth, Dan Moore. It's a lot right now for this offense on the injury front as well, and it starts with Kenny Pickett.
Yeah. Mark says Tomlin is an educated liar. He knows how to prepare for media shoots. He's dodgy. The only thing I'll really say to that is Mike Tomlin does not believe that a press conference setting is the place to be talking about stuff that goes on behind the walls of the South Side. And honestly, to be fair, I think he's right. It's not really anybody's business what really goes on behind those walls, especially whenever it comes to conversations that are had. I have been told conversations that have happened behind the walls. Every single one of those I've been told off the record, which means I can't talk about it. I can't repeat it.
No.
I've been told them. I know them, but I can't repeat them.
Yep.
And so, yeah, there's a reason why he doesn't share that kind of stuff. There's a reason.
Okay, Trevor asked, what are your thoughts on Broderick's performance? This, of course, Broderick Jones after he came in for an injured Dan Moore Jr. On Sunday. I thought Broderick started off really shaky and then started to get his footing underneath him as the game progressed. That first play, he got kind of blown up on. I know there was a play that he had to literally pick Kenny Pickett off the ground. But I think Broderick developed as the game went along. And Mike Tomlin said as much today, too. Broderick wasn't going to have it all figured out from snap one, but I think he learned as he went along. And I think he'll be okay as long as he is preparing as the starting left tackle this week. And, he'll know he'll be in there and everything. It's a little bit different when you prepare as a starter versus preparing as a backup. So I think Broderick will be okay on Sunday, but going against that Ravens pass rush, not easy.
Yeah. A little bit of coin says our run game didn't get going until Jones came in. I mean, it really didn't get going until the second half, and Jones was in the first half. Yeah, they definitely came out with a surefire intention of we're going to run the football. We're going to establish something. And that was probably to the point of, listen, we're not being physical enough. And so they're like, screw this. We're going to push these guys over. We're going to run the football. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what they did. And you could tell by the way Najee was running, because even the way Najee ran in the first half compared to the second half was different. Najee ran like he had his hair on fire in the second half. So, yeah. No, and honestly, like, to kind of go back to the whole point of being like, the type of offense that this team is, they do need to run the football no matter what. They have to be able to run the football.
Right.
No, really, you even talk about like what the Chiefs do. Pat Mahomes, that butt whooping they put on the Bears, in front of Taylor Swift and all them. Like Pat Mahomes credited, we got the running game going. That opened everything else. It does. It opens up everything else. So you do have to be able to establish the run. The problem is that with the offensive coordinator, telegraphs all of his plays, and they can't find any success in the running game because pretty much teams know exactly when they're running and when they're not.
I'm going to bring up this point from Mark a little bit earlier. He says Tomlin is too thick-headed about starting rookies. Now, I think there's some merit to this. And I think it was reverberated even louder last night when Devin Witherspoon returned that pick six for Seattle in Monday Night Football. Mm-hmm. Because you look at the starting cornerbacks, aside from a couple of Levi Wallace picks against the Raiders, nobody's really played well in the secondary. Like Minka's stat is padding stats, but that's because he has to make every tackle because all of these running backs are getting to the third level.
Well, and that's the problem is that Minka led the team in tackles on Sunday, and that's when things are going really, really wrong on defense.
Right.
If Minka Fitzpatrick's your leading tackler, that's a problem.
Okay, so Broderick Jones drafted 14th overall. They trade up for the guy. Doesn't start. It is only starting because of an injury. Joey Porter Jr. drafted 32nd, has incremental snaps going up the first 3 weeks, and then plays 10 in week 4.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Pat P and Levi Wallace return to form. Okay, we'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Darnell Washington is only used in specific blocking situations. The bright spot among the rookies is Keanu Benton, who is playing really well. You got to give credit where it's due on Keanu Benton. Keanu Benton's playing really well. From there, Nick Herbig, who for my money was the defensive MVP of the preseason, I think he only played 4 snaps against the Texans. Like, then you start looking at, the 5th, 6th, 7th. Of course, they're not going to be just playing these big roles. So the blue chips, so to speak, of the Steelers rookie class that, Broderick Jones, really good tackle coming out of the draft. Joey Porter Jr., of course, physically gifted, plays really good press coverage. Darnell Washington, freak build of an athlete. Keanu Benton, really fast. Nick Herbig, defensive MVP of the preseason. Really, only Benton is making an impact right now. That's a problem to me as well.
Yeah.
Is that these rookies are really I can't even say they're underperforming or underachieving because most of them are not getting a chance to play at all.
Keanu Benton's absolutely looked great. If anything, he should be leading while Cam Hayward is out. Based off of performance, Keanu Benton needs to be leading the team in snaps for all of the interior defenders up front.
Absolutely.
There's no question about that.
Absolutely.
There's one up here. Palbo Hunter says, yes, Harris is running hard, but do you think he could run consistently that way without the offensive line blocking better? He will be worn down. Well, no running back is going to be able to run successfully if the offensive line doesn't block better. But if the offensive line does its job, then yeah, Najee can run that way as much as he wants because you also have Jalen Warren to spell him whenever Najee needs a break, so you don't overwork him. The bottom line is the offensive line needs to block better if they want to run the football.
Well, let's go to Kane's question based off of that. Is it safe to say the O-line group that finished the game is the best group moving forward? I think you have to put James Daniels in there at some point. James Daniels, in my opinion, has been the most consistently best offensive lineman throughout the start of the season, which isn't saying much, I know. But I think James Daniels needs to be in there. Now, Broderick Jones, Isaac Seumalo, maybe Nate Herbig at center, maybe James Daniels at center, Mason Cole at center. I don't know.
Daniels would be the better option at center.
And then Herbig at right guard or whoever it is at right guard and then Chooks right. I don't know what the best offensive line combination for the Steelers is right now. Especially with Dan Moore being hurt, that takes out an option at right tackle because Dan Moore was testing out as a right tackle in Latrobe and, is basically being billed as the swing tackle. If Broderick has to go in, Dan Moore would play the right. So I'm not confident in any of these rotations right now for this offensive line. You got to give credit where it's due to Seumalo. He played really well on Sunday.
Well, in pass protection for sure.
Yeah.
He didn't give up any pressures. So this one, Mark brings up a good one. What the heck happened to Mason Cole? I don't know because he's been, arguably the weakest link so far. And it's just been, I don't know.
He had every reason to take a step up too. Yeah. I thought entering the season, he could have really taken a leap and become a top 10 center in the NFL. He was good last year. He was, I believe, in the top 14 on PFF, if you're into that kind of thing. I think he had a good season last year, and I think he had room to take a step up. But, man, he has just declined. He's getting absolutely worked underneath, and it's a technique thing. We talked about it with this offensive line and it being a technique thing. There are some running plays where the guards are taking steps backwards instead of forwards, and some pass plays where they're taking steps forwards instead of backwards. It's a backwards thing that's going on right now.
Evan asks, why are they not using Braden Fehoko? It's actually pretty simple. The Steelers don't run in their base defense the majority of the time. It's usually their nickel, in which they always have two down linemen, and Braden Fehoko is a nose tackle and pretty much only a nose tackle. So not saying that they can't use him when they're in their base defense. Then maybe they could. Maybe he's a better option than Armin Watts, or even move Keanu Benton over to a 3-tech. And then, Fehoko plays nose tackle, but that'd probably be one of the main reasons why.
Robert says we need Bo Nix, of course, the Oregon quarterback. They can't tank enough like the Bears are to get Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison.
Steelers are already 2-2. They're
no. Can't tank now.
No,
can't go back now.
No.
Chris, we have about 4 minutes or so, 3 minutes or so, 2 minutes or so, however, a few minutes on the South Side Beat before DK and Ramon at 4:00 on the Ramon Foster Show. Any final thoughts before we get out of here today?
Oh, man. I don't know, man. I'm already exhausted. I'm exhausted. It's October, man. Still got all of the rest of this month, November, December, and beginning of January. And the way this team is playing, it's not going to go any further than that. So, it's really disheartening. You see this team, you see everything that happened in the offseason, there's a lot of expectation. And then I never foresaw this coming. I never saw this coming. Did I think that Matt Canada was going to lay another egg and the offense was going to be worse, than what people might think it would be because of the additions and everything? Yeah, that was always a possibility. But for this team to be manhandled the way they've been manhandled on the defensive side of the ball is that's a problem. That's a serious problem because no matter what happened with the offense, the Steelers are going to have a good defense, and they just don't have a good defense right now.
Nope. Mark, I'll let my final thought go to Mark. Shadur Sanders, anybody? The Steelers did send a scout to USC Colorado a couple weeks ago. Who knows who they were watching? That information is never revealed. But Shadur Sanders obviously was on the field for the Buffaloes there. That's going to do it for us on a Tomlin Tuesday here in the South Side Beat. Chris and I will return on Wednesday. I will be in very low quality coming right out of the locker room at 3 p.m.
Low quality Corey.
Low quality Corey makes a return. Let's hope the internet is cooperating with us.
At least enough so we can get a show in.
Correct, yes.
Otherwise, I'm flying solo, which means you guys are going to be my co-host.
Which is fine. Hey, they're our co-hosts anyway.
Oh,
this is not our show. This is our show as a collective. We're in this together, correct? Right. All right. Let's sign off. That was a really unprofessional way to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. We're signing off. He's Chris. I'm Corey. This has been the Southside Beat. Thanks for hanging with us. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Cheers, everyone.